It definitely seems that the Me Too movement has been shifted into high gear with the conviction of Harvey Weinstein, notorious Hollywood predator. And my next guest is uniquely well suited to help us understand what's going on from a legal standpoint. I'm joined by Elizabeth Beck, who is not just a legal expert and an attorney, she's a mom, she is an advocate for women's rights to the extent that she's a woman, and she is a very outspoken lawyer. Elizabeth, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
Yeah, good to see you. We've had your lovely husband Jared on several times since we've last seen you, so wanted to have you back on to give us some insights, not only from a legal standpoint. Everybody knows that you're a lawyer, you and your husband have the Beck and Lee law firm, but also one time you and I were having a conversation where you stated a really unique insight that you had from a legal standpoint with regard to rape. So I just wanted to check in with you and see what are your feelings about this Harvey Weinstein verdict.
Well, if you look at the charges that were brought against Mr. Weinstein and the charges that the jury acquitted him on and the charges on which he was convicted, you have to look at what those particular charges are. Mm-hmm. So he was acquitted. Mr. Weinstein was acquitted of predatory sexual assault as well as first-degree rape. And the charges are very important because the elements that the prosecution, and the burden is always on the prosecution, to prove is different. You know, he was convicted of first-degree commission of a criminal sexual act and third-degree rape, and this was in New York. Mm-hmm. So if you go into the New York rape laws, and I'm on this website right now, it's called findlaw.com.
Yep.
And the difference between first-degree rape and third-degree rape is as follows. Now I'll talk about first-degree rape, which is what he was acquitted on. A person is guilty of rape in the first degree when he or she engages in sexual intercourse, it has to be sexual intercourse, by forcible compulsion, okay? That means you have to compel the victim through the use of physical force or the threat of immediate death, physical injury, or kidnapping.
But it's got to be physical force or death, not you're going to lose your job, is that right?
Correct.
Huh.
Or the person is incapable of consent by reason of being physically helpless,
like drunk
who is
or drugged.
Who is less than 11 years old, or who is less than 13 and the defendant is 18 or more.
Wow.
So if you look at this, whether or not somebody is 13, less than 13 is a fact, and whether the defendant is 18 or more is a fact. So a lot of times such laws are called statutory rape because there's no he said or she said. It's boom, how old are these people? Okay, so that's first degree. What is third degree? Because this is what he was convicted on.
Right.
This is New York Penal Code section 130.25. A person is guilty of rape in the third degree when he or she engages in sexual intercourse with another person who is incapable of consent by reason of some factor other than being less than 17 years old, who is less than 17 years old and the defendant is 21 years old or more, or without such person's consent, which is withheld for some other reason, an incapacity to consent. So if the victim, or the alleged victim, I should say, lawyers love using the word alleged.
Right.
If that person says no, then that's different. But if the alleged victim does not say no, but they're afraid of whatever else is going on, and they did not actively consent, that could be rape in the third degree. So the conversation that I had with you before, Jason, is rape is a very unique crime. And it's not when I say unique, it's not unique because it's so violative and it wrecks a person's life and it's such a profound violation of the sanctity over your own body.
Yeah.
It's unique because it's not the act that's the crime, it's this idea of consent, right? So two people having sex, let's say they're both over 21, that's not a crime. Okay, that is just not a crime. It is only a crime if there hasn't been consent. Now, let me give you an example as to why proving rape can be so difficult. It's not because the world hates women. Okay, let's just leave all that aside. Okay, as far as I know, euthanasia is not legal in this country.
Right.
Okay?
That's the exact example I was going to give you, because there's no circumstance,
Yes.
even if someone consents for you to take their life because they're in pain,
Right.
you're still going to go on
Correct.
trial for murder.
Murder. So murder is a great crime to prove. Now, it still can be difficult, but when you have a dead body and there's a bloody knife, okay, there's a murder here. There's rape. There's stab wounds all over this person. There's a bloody knife. The question is, who did it?
Right.
Who did it? And can we prove that they did it? And if you can't find a body, that makes it more difficult. But the act, a dead body in and of itself, seems to be probative of the commission of murder. Now, let's say we live in a world where euthanasia is legal. So, and let's say it's not just limited to medical professionals. If you have your very old grandfather that you've been taking care of all his life, and he just got, you know, he has a terminal illness and he's in a lot of pain, and he says, grandson, I want you to go out and get me some this, that, and you give it to him. And let's say that's legal because he consented.
Right.
Can you imagine how, in a world like that, how difficult it would be to prove murder when you have somebody and you have somebody who's dead, right? So now you can understand why rape is so difficult to prove if there's no video evidence. It's just two people in a room, right? That's one of the reasons why rape is so difficult.
Yeah,
now,
just
in
one
the Harvey
person's
Weinstein,
word against the other.
right? And so rape in the third degree, I was reading a little, now I'm not a New York lawyer, I'm not licensed in New York, and this is all based on the New York Penal Code. But my reading of rape in the third degree is that, here, now I'm going to, in rape in the third degree, it can look like they gave consent, okay? But you can still be convicted of rape in the third degree. Even, I'm reading here now from the law offices of Stephen Bilkis. I don't know him. He seems to be a lawyer in New York, so thank you for putting this up on his website. Even if the other person appears to have consented, if under the law that person does not have the capacity to consent, then there was no consent. You can be charged with rape in the third degree. So what does that mean? You can rape somebody who's mentally, mental incapacity, okay? Let's say there's
drunk, passed out, drugged.
Or another example that rape in the third degree is a good example for it is people with the mental capacity of a child. They're
right.
30 years old, they're adults, but they have the mental capacity. And you can ask them, hey, you want to knock boots? And they say yes.
But if they're like in a mental hospital or something and they're not.
Exactly. And then you have sex with them and you say, well, they're over 25 and he or she said yes. No, that's rape in the third degree.
Right.
Okay? Because they also, it's interesting, if you are in the custody of the Department of Corrections and Community Service and the assailant is an employee of that department, that is considered rape in the third degree.
Wow. So,
Yes.
so all this stuff we hear about guards having sex with prisoners, it's rape.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
What about
Okay,
teachers and students?
That's a whole other ball of wax. That goes into stat rape territory. Yeah,
So Harvey
because they're
Weinstein,
they're underage.
he's
So
been,
the thing with, yeah, go ahead.
well, he's been convicted of rape in the third degree because these were adult
Yes.
women who were in control of their mental faculties. I think there was even an issue where one or more of these women had actually ongoing relationships with Harvey Weinstein after their initial sexual encounter, which struck me as a complicated, unusual, and strange circumstance for an alleged
I
rape.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think that you know, I'm not I'm not a rape counselor, but I would imagine that uh, a lot of people, we all sort of know that rape is a difficult crime to prove. So I think different people have different ways of coping with what happened. They might tell themselves, "I'm okay, I'm fine." You know, it's if years later they may come to the realization that they had been violated. But regardless of all that, for somebody to go to jail on a rape charge, uh, you have to prove. Now, this is the standard in criminal trials, okay? Civil's different. You sue somebody and then you just get a check. That standard is preponderance of the evidence. More likely than not, you know, balance of probabilities. In criminal, if you want to send somebody to jail, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, okay?
Right.
So what does that mean? That means the jury, in order to convict him, oh, by the way,
Mm.
what does first degree, what does predatory sexual assault mean?
Yeah.
Because he was acquitted of that. Predatory sexual assault, I'm looking at the New York State Senate website here. Section 130.95 says here, a person is guilty of predatory sexual assault when he or she commits the crime of rape in the first degree, criminal sexual act in the first degree, and there's aggravating factors that they go on. So if you are acquitted of rape in the first degree, automatically you cannot be guilty of predatory sexual assault. Okay?
So that seems confusing.
So, oh no. So predatory sexual assault seems to be even more severe than rape in the first degree. You have to commit rape in the first degree, and you have to actually cause serious physical injury to the victim, or uses or threatens the immediate use of a dangerous instrument. So let's say a gun. Okay, you're not going to say, "Oh, I'm going to kill you." You actually shake a gun at their faces. Or he or she has engaged in conduct constituting the crime of rape against one or more additional persons. So, you know, it's more than one victim, it sounds like.
So that's probably one of the major factors with Harvey Weinstein, because there were so many.
So, well, that might be. So they threw this in there because if he is convicted of rape in the first degree, then the next issue is you have to see if he's now guilty of predatory sexual assault, because he's been found guilty of crime of the rape in the first degree. That's a requirement to be convicted of predatory sexual assault.
Got it.
So rape in the first degree is, you're gonna have sex with me or I'm gonna kill you. And predatory sexual assault is, you're gonna have sex with me or I'm gonna kill you, and then you're waving a gun at them, for example, or you're punching them in the face.
But Elizabeth, doesn't it also cover, it seems like Harvey Weinstein was almost in a regular practice of utilizing his position as a Hollywood producer. I mean, it's the thing that's so strange about this is that basically everybody knows, whether you've worked in Hollywood or not, this concept of the producer's casting couch is basically famous. And so while Harvey Weinstein is a truly disgusting individual who I would not attempt to defend, isn't there some responsibility of an adult person who puts themselves into that situation, who, I mean, actresses, everybody in Hollywood knew that this was this guy's deal. So people who don't want to submit themselves to sexual activity that I mean, Harvey Weinstein is a fat, disgusting guy compared to these beautiful 20-year-old actresses that he's hanging out with.
What does that have to do with it?
I'm just saying it's not like he's a nice guy and they all liked hanging out with him and he was really likable or he's in great shape or he's some kind of super personality that
remember,
women
there
just
was a
love.
serial killer. I can't remember his name. He was a serial killer, and apparently he was quite a looker. So looks don't
Well, I
really
mean,
have anything.
don't misunderstand what I'm saying. It's not that if he's good looking, it's okay to rape people. I'm just saying these women could not have been mistaken. Like if a girl goes on a date with a guy who she thinks is handsome, and then on the date he rapes her, you know, that's totally unexpected. But if you're going
I
into a
think you're
meeting
being
with a
unfair. I think, first
disgusting
of all,
Hollywood guy
first of
who's
all, I think you're
famous,
being unfair. First of all, I think you're being unfair to pudgy balding guys. Okay,
sorry.
really.
The only point I'm
His
trying to
looks has
make,
nothing
Elizabeth,
his looks has nothing to
is
do-
there no responsibility on an adult woman who puts herself into a situation where I mean, you walk into the lion's cage at the Bronx Zoo and get eaten. Nobody deserves to get eaten by a lion, but why would you do that? Ted Bundy is who you're thinking of, I
Ted
think,
Bundy,
according to
thank
Edward
you,
Griffin.
yes. So, first of all, we live in a world where you know a lot of guys are running around with baby Bjorns and women are in the workforce, and I think it is unreasonable. It is unreasonable to expect that you can avoid all situations where things can happen. Certainly, you know, in the entertainment industry, where I believe rapport and human interactions play such a high role in making a movie come to fruition, and you're supposed to like each other. They're supposed to like your co-stars. I think those situations naturally happen. So I don't think there's anything wrong in having a meeting one-on-one with a big-time Hollywood producer to see if he likes you and thinks that you're appropriate for the role. The issue really is when he does something, right? When he does something, what does the law say at that point? Well, first of all, it's a difficult situation because, like I said, sexual contact, as long as there's consent, is not illegal. And a lot of people, we all know this, so if you're in a situation like that, you have to be somewhat wary, right? I mean, that's just the way Hollywood is.
Well, and I want to make sure that my comments aren't being misconstrued. I'm not trying to blame a victim, but I'm saying when we look at this picture of Harvey Weinstein with Gwyneth Paltrow, she is a world-class movie star, beautiful woman. He's a schlubby, much older, unattractive guy who she would definitely not be hanging out with if it wasn't for the fact that he's a famous movie producer who had a tremendous impact on her career. So you're an attractive woman in the professional world. If a client called you and said, I'm closing on a real estate deal, I'd like to come by your office to discuss it, that seems normal. If he said, hey, I saw you on your website, I'd like to meet you at my hotel at 10 o'clock at night, come on over, let's discuss this legal case, that would strike you as unusual, wouldn't it?
Oh, I don't know. When I was at Yale Law School, the large law firms, they do recruiting every year. Mm-hmm. And their hotshot attorneys come in to recruit starry-eyed young lawyers, and these law firms take over a hotel. And you know what? The interviews are all done in hotel rooms, one-on-one.
Really?
I swear to God. Yeah, there's nothing untoward. There's a bed right there. You're sitting here. There's a lawyer across from you. And they're all cranky because they have to interview 30 or 40 kids a day. All right? So I don't think any of the students think anything of it, and if any of the interviewing attorneys gets any bright ideas, they'll be hell. I'm sure people will squawk. So I don't think that a meeting happening in a hotel room, anybody should read into it,
Really?
I mean, they want to meet with you,
Huh. Well,
Yeah.
That's
So that's a little
strange
interesting.
to me. That is
Is it?
interesting because, I mean, I've spoken to tons of female friends in Hollywood who are telling me they have this meeting or that meeting with this director. It's like, come on now. That's, I mean, look, Hollywood works differently than other businesses. It's, you know, people aren't wearing suits and things like that, but the types of things that I don't have a specific story to recount, but I can remember many occasions where some attractive woman was telling me about a meeting that she was planning to go to, and if it were my sister, daughter, wife, whatever, I wouldn't be very comfortable with it at all. The thing I'm trying to get to is there were these, and again, I mean, you know, I realize I'm dealing with a lawyer asking you questions about a legal case. It's like asking a doctor about a medical condition of a patient that they haven't examined, but we've got this situation where there were emails released suggesting long relationships with the accuser. And of course, there are cases even within marriages where there are allegations of rape. It was difficult for me to reconcile how someone could accuse a person of rape who, you know, they're remembering now years later that it was rape after they were in a relationship with the person for a long time. Perhaps they were, you know, maybe not in the case of Harvey Weinstein, but this Me Too movement, it's a dangerous double-edged sword because we want people to be able to be trusted and believed, but at the same time, people have a right to be considered innocent until proven guilty, and you're raising some of these points that make it difficult to prove.
I don't think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's just the nature of the crime that makes it's always been difficult to prove. You have to satisfy the elements, and my understanding from reading some of the articles about this trial is, and this is unfortunate, but in trials, credibility is always an issue, right? So you have a witness, does he or she, are they truthful people generally? Because if you can prove that they can lie at the drop of a hat, then all of a sudden their testimony comes into question. And so for some of the people that were on the stand, the accusers, now it's interesting because he was in trial for assaulting 3 people. But they had a laundry list of people come in saying Weinstein did this, Weinstein did that. And some of those folks, unfortunately, their credibility was tarnished when other witnesses came in and said, well, I saw her right after and she seemed fine.
Well, that's what I mean. How many of these people are now remembering in the wake of Me Too? Maybe, you know, 2004, it was a great idea to have sex with Harvey Weinstein. You get a role in a movie. Maybe now you're a well-known actress, millions of dollars. You kind of held your nose, did what you decided to do at the time. And now is a good opportunity to pile on this guy and say, oh, you know what, that was rape.
Well, I don't think that's being fair because I think a crime is a crime. Now, it's like the old adage: if a tree falls in the forest but nobody's there to hear it, does it make a noise?
Be specific. I'm not saying this person did this, that, the other thing, and so they're lying. I'm just saying, isn't this a very sort of dangerous, treacherous area for these reasons?
No. Not really, because you got to still prove the crime, and the standard is very high. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. So I took some notes. What is that standard, beyond a reasonable doubt? Dictionary.law.com says it's hard. It's hard to define what reasonable doubt is.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's referred to a moral certainty. Okay? All right? The phrase is fraught with uncertainty as to meaning, but also try. You better be damn sure. All right? So that's the standard. And in the United States, it is what is beyond a reasonable doubt. It means whether there exists an alternative explanation to the facts that seems plausible.
Right.
If an alternative explanation to the facts does not seem plausible, then there is no reasonable doubt. So in this case, for rape in the first degree, the jury felt that the evidence didn't show that. Now, here's the funny thing about juries is that you get different panels and they could come back with different decisions. So a different panel of juries could very well say, I find that there is an alternative explanation to these facts and acquitted him in third-degree rape. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but as to your question of, well, all these people, they were quiet for so long and now they're coming out of the woodwork. If a crime has been committed, a crime has been committed, and you may not know it at the time, but you may find out later.
Right.
And I'll give you a good example. Child sexual abuse. Let's talk about that. So, I've been reading some articles about it. If you are a child, okay, and your father is sexually abusing you, you go to school and you don't talk about this in school. You're
Right.
9 years old, you're 8. You may think everybody does this. Everybody's daddy does this. Okay, you just don't know.
Right.
But it's when you become older, it dawns on you that your father shouldn't have done that. It's quite illegal. Okay? And then they realize that years later. Now, obviously, these are grown women, they're not children. But in a similar fashion, at that time, they may not realize that a wrong had been done to them. It's only years after the fact. And also, please keep in mind that people a lot of times are scared. They're especially scared to go up against Mr. Weinstein, who
Right.
has a lot of clout in Hollywood, and they may, who's going to listen to me? I'm a nobody.
Yep.
That's
No,
that's
they're
very
all
common.
valid. All valid.
But be that as it may, now, people may look at this particular fact pattern and say, he was not guilty of third-degree rape. I think, who the hell knows what went on in that hotel room, and that's fine. Reasonable minds can disagree on it. Sometimes it starts to dance on the fence, It's, like I said, a different jury. But this jury heard all the evidence and convicted him in third-degree rape. Now, the other thing I was thinking of is this probably goes on a lot in certain industries like the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Sort of a unspoken quid pro quo.
Yeah.
You understand?
It's widely known.
So Mr. Weinstein may just be sort of a sacrificial lamb, so people will shut up about it and let things go on. Because
You
it's
mean
not
that
like
the powers that be in Hollywood have offered him up as this guy's going to go to jail and then we're done with this
Sure.
Me Too thing?
Yeah, look, there's a lot. Harvey Weinstein, he was apparently buddies with Jeffrey Epstein. There's a lot of interconnectedness when it comes to all of this stuff. I understand that there's all sorts of, forget about a desperate starlet trying to star in a movie and letting some guy have his way with her because she really wants to make it in the business. What about human trafficking? There are people that are being bought and sold like so many slaves, and
Right.
but nobody wants to touch that because it's just too scary.
Well, you raise a good point. There's this really bizarre photo of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell hanging out with Harvey Weinstein. I don't know if this is a costume party or what. Well, he looks like he's dressed as a conductor, and Epstein is like the captain of a ship or something.
It sounds like he's trying to star in the Love Boat.
Something like that. I do want to thank Patricia Stone. I believe she is the first ever user of Super, whatever this is, that gives you these funky emojis. It's not just Super Chat. It's a chicken fist bump, which is totally appropriate for Elizabeth Beck, a chicken farmer.
I wouldn't call myself a chicken farmer. I have a backyard flock. But.
Well, you're raising chickens, right?
Yes, I haven't bought eggs from the grocery store in a long time.
You raise some really excellent chickens, I have to say. And thank you for that Super Chat, super, whatever it is, super sticker from Patricia. So, okay, back to this. So it's interesting that you bring this up because this is what a lot of people have been talking about and thinking about is the Weinstein-Epstein connection. They were hanging out with Bill Clinton. That's the other thing, is that this is not just a case of a predatory weirdo who's hanging out in Hollywood and he's like some anomalous lone operator. He seems to be connected to the former president, his wife, who's possibly even going to run again this year. Mike Bloomberg has been linked to Harvey Weinstein. True Pundit had a story earlier today about Mike Bloomberg providing some kind of award to Harvey Weinstein. To be fair, I mean, I don't really care for Mike Bloomberg too much either, but I think it was, I mean, looking at the ceremony, it seemed to be kind of more of a, the guy's making movies in New York City, and it seemed to be sort of an economic sort of a thing to do, to give him this award for making all kinds of movies. But at the same time, it doesn't look good for Mike Bloomberg. I mean, this is a guy who is hanging out with all of these. Sorry about that. Mike
Well,
Bloomberg.
it depends on what he gave. What is he giving the award for?
Yeah, it's the Made in New York award. I mean, again, I think it has to do with the number of movies and things that his company was making in New York. It's not like
Woody Allen married his daughter, and he gets award for his movies.
Yeah.
You know, didn't he marry his daughter?
I think it was his adopted.
That's something funny going on there.
Yeah, definitely a strange thing to do. That was his adopted daughter. I guess they're still married. That's a totally weird thing. Not rape, though, and he never went to jail for that. I mean, again, it's just, there's so many connections to Harvey Weinstein. So the other thing that we heard today after this verdict is
Roman Polanski. Roman Polanski.
Right.
Oy.
But they took him, he was remanded to custody. They took him right to jail. Don't they usually wait until sentencing? Why did they do that? Because he's a flight risk?
That I don't know. But it's a very high profile case. And it's not like they're going after everyone. I do think that he's sort of being, it's a public flogging.
Elizabeth, Todd, where'd it go? Todd Halliday in the comments here has a great point. He's asking, why has the burden of proof been switched to the defendant in 30-year-old rape claims? Are these 30 years old? But I mean, yeah, why is the burden of proof on the defendant, or is it?
No, the burden of proof is on the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. It's one of the reasons why Weinstein didn't take the stand.
Why?
It's not up to him to go up there and say, listen, I'm innocent. It's up to the prosecution to present their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And they didn't. The jury decided that they didn't do it for some of the claims.
And actually, it's pretty common in a criminal case for the defendant not to testify, right?
Right. You plead the fifth. It's enshrined in our Constitution, which, as Judge Posner, remember him?
Yep.
He had a few things to say about the Constitution. I think a lot of people think that the U.S. Constitution is dead or dying.
Yeah, I think Nancy Pelosi is one of those people. We've got the comment section is erupting here, Elizabeth. So, Quarite Vera is saying that they're going to put him in Jeffrey Epstein's cell, which is interesting. Rise Above reminds us, well, I don't know if that's a joke or true, but I guess the idea is he's also not going to hang himself. Rise Above reminds us that Roman Polanski and Bill Clinton are celebrated rapists walking free. This is another good point, is that we've seen a lot of people in Hollywood applaud Roman Polanski. They talk about his movies, Meryl Streep, all these Me Too people. I mean, this is a guy, Roman Polanski, he's made a lot of good films, but he gave some 13-year-old girl Quaaludes, drugged her, had sex with her. I mean, that falls into all the categories of everything that you were talking about before. Unable to consent, not in a mental, unable, even if she wasn't drugged, to consent. Why? I mean, I know you don't know the answer why, but it's another thing that's really difficult to reconcile, that people in Hollywood think that's great and he's a nice guy.
I don't think it's all that unusual. I think that people with great gifts, society tends to give a little bit of a pass to. It's always been that way. So if you're a genius at something, and then you sort of people kind of, there's also a lot of people hanging off of their work, and they have a huge machine behind them that stands to benefit from their continued output. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, as far as Roman Polanski is concerned, I've read about his childhood. He had a very, very, very profoundly disturbed childhood. So God knows what he went through to make him turn out that way and do those things to 13-year-old girls. But
I didn't know that.
regardless,
What
oh
happened to
yeah,
him in his childhood? Oh, it was probably hanging with the Nazis, getting thrown out of
he was
Poland.
running. He was running. He was running through the fields as a runaway, and God knows he was probably eating dirt to stay alive. I don't know. I'm not saying this to excuse him,
Right.
okay? But a lot of times when people behave in antisocial ways, it usually, oftentimes you can find some antisocial, you know, actions done to them to sort of damage them. But that's not to excuse people, because once you
Right.
become an adult, you're responsible for your own
And
actions.
certainly, if we were to examine any psychotic killer or rapist, they probably, in the overwhelming majority of cases, did not grow up in loving families where everything they needed emotionally, physically, and practically was provided to them. They probably have had pretty desperate and not good
Yes,
upbringings.
and cry me a river, but a lot of people have backgrounds like that, and they don't go around chopping up people and stuffing them
Right.
in the refrigerators. Uh, but one of the goals of our criminal justice system is to protect society from people like that.
Right.
So when you talk about, um, for example, Hollywood, uh, there's always been allegations of child abuse in Hollywood. If you look at the old Shirley Temple movies, I mean, you kind of have to read between the lines, but you kind of wonder what the heck is going on in there. Shirley Temple herself talked about her childhood career doing burlesque
Whoa.
and how horrible it was, and how the children would, you read about it, it sounds like they were tortured in order to perform better. So, um, but
So Shirley
sticks out
Temple,
entertainment.
it's
Yeah.
interesting. This is somebody that I haven't thought very much about, but I guess, I mean,
Yeah.
she was kind of like the original John Benet Ramsey, who I don't really know too much about Shirley Temple. I guess, she's got to be dead by now, or a very old lady, right?
I don't know. I don't know if she passed away, but she was a child burlesque actress from the age of 4 or 5.
Burlesque. I mean, so that's just singing and stuff, right? Not,
Oh, it was very off color things that involved children.
huh.
I think it was the series was called Baby Burlesque, and it was shown
Wow.
prior to the actual movies, and
That's so weird.
just yeah, it was little kids, 4, 5, 6-year-olds dressed as adults, sort of in adult situations.
She died just about 6 years ago, February
Yeah.
2014. Baby Burlesque. I never heard of that. I thought she was just like the good ship Lollipop and stuff like
No,
that.
that's when she hit it big, but she started off in doing Baby Burlesque.
Huh. Wow. So there's certainly going to be an appeal to this Weinstein case. Wow. So here it is, 1932, Baby Burlesques. And this is a film that you've seen, huh?
I don't know if I've seen it. I've read some articles. I think I saw some videos on YouTube.
It's a
No.
collective series title of 8 thematically unrelated one reel pre-code films, meaning before they came out with G, PG, R, and all that stuff. It's produced by Jack Hayes and directed by Charles Lamont for Educational Pictures in 1932 and 1933. They're satires of major motion pictures. Huh.
Well, Ms. Temple talked about how, the training, if you didn't behave properly, you would get locked in a closet, all sorts of things. It was either do or die.
Yeah, there are articles about it here in Time magazine that before the good ship Lollipop, Shirley Temple did baby burlesques. So this is
Yeah.
not a new thing, but it's just sort of coming into the public conversation for the first time in the past couple of years. I mean, this is weird. We got kids with their shirts off.
It wasn't let me tell you, it wasn't like Little Rascals. They were in apparently very adult-themed situations.
That's a bizarre thing. Never heard about that before. Sorry, so back to Harvey Weinstein. There's almost certainly going to be an appeal. What are your thoughts with regard to appeal in this situation? You think it's going to be overturned, or it seems like a lot of people want Harvey Weinstein to die in jail?
I understand that. They may be. Harvey Weinstein should not, okay, take the fall for all the rapists running around out there. That may quell the clamoring masses, but that's not really the right result. If people want rapes to be better prosecuted, then we probably need more resources. I think law enforcement needs to take the crime more seriously. I do think that women, simply because the vast majority of victims apparently to rapes are women, seem to take the crime more seriously. There are more men that are like, oh, you shouldn't be wearing that skirt, for example. They say things like that. So that attitudes like that need to be dispelled, because rape is a crime. Wearing a short skirt is not a crime.
Right.
But throwing Weinstein to the howling mobs at the gate is not necessarily going to do much. Really, if everybody knows that there's not going to be any more prosecutions after him.
Well, do we know that? I mean, what about Bill Cosby?
I don't. Yeah, there's been, the thing is, I think there was a time when going to jail for third-degree rape, especially if you're a person of influence, might have been inconceivable. So that may be changing somewhat, certainly because there are more and more women out there working, okay? And their husbands support them working. The family needs the money. They're out there working. And nobody wants their sisters, their mothers, their cousins, and their daughters getting raped, okay?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Keep all your female family members in a back room? Can't do that.
So the case is moving to LA now, Elizabeth. I don't know if you knew that, but they're obviously, it's a complicated case that has some more aspects to it here.
What is that? That's another bunch of.
I think it's other accusers, perhaps.
Yeah.
So he's got the verdict. It's been presumed that he's going to Rikers Island, although that's not for sure. I don't know if it was a joke or serious, but the notion of putting him in the MCC seems more likely. It's right next to the courthouse there, and that seems to be where federal prisoners hang out while they're waiting for whatever the next phase is going to be.
But this isn't federal, though. This isn't federal. It's a state, right? New York State. So if you're,
I don't know.
Yeah, if it's state, then you're not going to go to the federal pen. That's for federal crimes.
I guess that's why then he's going to Rikers Island. So this is telling us that the New York chapter of this thing is over, pending an appeal and sentencing,
Right.
but the saga will move to Los Angeles. The district attorney, Jackie Lacey, filed charges of forcible rape. So this is now, I guess, another allegations made by two women who claim Weinstein assaulted them in separate incidents in hotels in Beverly Hills and West LA. Now listen, I absolutely agree that if this crime took place, it should be prosecuted. But I go to our friend and viewer, Todd Holliday, who raises another good point. Todd was saying that the Me Too movement is really just encouraging people to kind of, he says, Todd says, I think these hashtag Me Too has taken women with unprovable rape claims from 10, 20, 30 years ago, and the attention should be for pedophiles and sex trafficking. That's an interesting point as well.
Well, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. You
But it
know,
does
I
muddy
think
the
people.
waters to some extent, doesn't it? I mean, we hear about Harvey Weinstein and all this effort being put forward to
Well,
prosecute
why?
him, but
I don't know why people are getting their boxers in a bunch if they're unprovable. Yes, it's a long time. You know, there are statutes of limitations that may come into play. If people want to talk about what happened to them, why are you getting upset?
I'm
Okay,
not
Harvey
getting upset.
Weinstein.
I'm
I'm
just
talking about.
asking
If
why.
Harvey Weinstein raped me 20 years ago when I was 22 years old and trying to make it in Hollywood, somebody comes out and says that. Why are you getting mad at her? Okay, if it's a long time ago and there hasn't been any evidence and she didn't go to the cops, yeah, that's probably going to be an extremely difficult, if not impossible, rape case. But why are you getting upset about that?
I don't know that he's getting upset. It raises the interesting question that there is obviously a considerable effort underway in New York, in
Yeah.
California, to
Well, that's
prosecute
what I'm
Harvey Weinstein,
saying.
but
Yeah,
nobody
he's a
is trying to
sacrificial lamb.
find Ghislaine Maxwell. Why is that?
I don't know. Last time she was spotted at an In-N-Out. What
Right.
happened?
Well, I called In-N-Out Burger and I spoke with their media, what was she? Their media representative or something. They told me to wait and she'd come to the phone and spoke with her. And I asked her if they could provide their surveillance camera footage to the FBI so that we could confirm or deny if Ghislaine Maxwell was in fact at the In-N-Out Burger on Lancashire Boulevard on August 15th, 2019. Because if she wasn't, it raises an even more bizarre set of questions about these extremely bizarre photographs that appeared in the New York Post. Now, ultimately, the woman from In-N-Out Burger said that if the FBI would contact them, they would cooperate. And I was shocked by this, that the FBI hadn't contacted them, and I tried to encourage her to proactively take this information to the FBI, to try to encourage the FBI to actually do something, which I know is, very much against the DNA of the FBI. They prefer to do nothing but run up the barbell and frame people for stuff.
Oh my
But-
God. You sound like
then-
you have a personal gripe against them.
Elizabeth, they started threatening me. Their assistant general
know?
counsel told me that they were going to bring a lawsuit against me for violating California's wiretapping laws, that there were criminal charges that would be brought against me. Now, as I read the rules of ethical conduct as put forth by the California State Bar, an attorney is not supposed to use the threat of criminal prosecution to achieve a civil goal. So I do think that In-N-Out Burger was inappropriate in what they said in trying to get me to remove the YouTube video where I spoke to their media representative, and they seemed much more interested in prosecuting and suing me than actually trying to locate Ghislaine Maxwell, who's been accused of pimping and raping and recording child porn.
Now, in their defense, they're trying to sell burgers and you're stirring the pot. As a journalist, I know you're supposed to stir the pot, but, you stir the pot, the hornets might come out.
Well, Mel Chapman asks a very
I'm not
profound
saying that they were in
question,
the right.
Elizabeth. He says, why did In-N-Out Burger not really do anything? And that is an extremely good question that we don't yet have an answer to. But I can tell you this, that I basically
Hey man,
told
we're just
them,
trying to sell some burgers here.
I
You
don't
know,
think that's all they're trying to do, Elizabeth, because the fact of the matter is, it does seem worse from a PR standpoint to pursue a journalist who's trying to figure out where an alleged child trafficker, rapist, pimp, pornographer might be. It seems like it would be a worse PR play to bring a huge lawsuit and criminal charges against me to defend this person, when all I'm asking them to do is turn over evidence to the authorities. So ultimately, I basically told them I'm ready to test their legal theory in court, and they backed down. But we still have not seen any security camera footage, and as far as I know, there's been no cooperation between In-N-Out Burger and the FBI. So as far as answering the question of why have they not done anything, I don't know, but it's an extremely good question. And there's a lot of other weird stuff surrounding In-N-Out Burger and the New York Post. So I'm looking at some of these connections that go beyond the surface level. Why is so much effort being put into prosecuting Harvey Weinstein, while none is being put into pursuing Ghislaine Maxwell, and none is being put into pursuing Bill Clinton. I wanted to invite Juanita Broderick to join us today and ask what she thinks about this conviction of Harvey Weinstein. She's been outspoken about Bill Clinton forcibly raping her for many, many years, and nothing has been done.
Wow.
Yeah, but I wasn't able to reach her.
You know, I read a little bit about Miss Broderick's recitation of the event so many years ago, and actually, I think it was General Colin Powell who called Bill Clinton, called him a dog. Mm. You know, he was just a dog. Bill Clinton was a dog.
Yeah, I think it's offensive to dogs to say that.
Actually, it's true.
Dogs are generally friendly. Bill Clinton seems to be a predatory psychopath. Juanita Broderick can be seen here on the right in the 1970s. Yeah. And of course, there's Bill Clinton. Yeah, this is a terrible story. And it really, as you said, it really had a tremendous impact and continues to have a tremendous impact on Juanita Broderick's life. And yet, nobody is, not nobody, but most people are not allowing her to be believed.
Yeah, because they love Bill so much. They're friends of Bill, I guess. Also, the thing about political figures is because charges of rape often hinges, nobody knows what went on in that room except those two people and possibly God, if you believe in it. But a lot of people, depending on, I think it's what your personal experiences. So it's who you identify with more. So a lot of people would say, poor Juanita, my God. And other people would say, poor Bill. This woman is just out to get him because he's a successful politician. And you know, no, I guess we'll never know. I guess two minds can differ, really. That's.
Well, I'm going to try to get Juanita Broderick back and ask her how she feels now. I mean, this is obviously a much different climate than the 1970s when this occurred with her.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, look, I think Me Too is a good thing in that it empowers women to come forward. I hope that it sends a message to young men that you got to be very careful, maybe even excessively careful, to not allow yourself to be put into a situation where perhaps someone who has bad intentions could bring an allegation like this.
You know, the thing about Me Too is people just focus on men and women, but women can be just as capable of sexual assault and abusing power. And it's not even a heterosexual issue. It's people of all orientations can you know, prey on other people. So as more and more, as we interact more and more in the workplace, I think it's important to just you know, just be careful, I guess, and also don't you know, just as certainly in the workplace, just probably, you know, keep it clear.
Yeah.
It's not like the 70s anymore, right. You know, where you hire secretaries because you hope to sleep with them or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the movie The Producers.
You have to work at a restaurant now if you want to do that. But, sorry, bad joke. Now,
I'm sorry.
Elizabeth, we've got just a few minutes left for tonight. People who are new to Crowdsource the Truth might not be aware that you and your husband, Jared, are the legal team behind the DNC lawsuit. Can you give us a couple comments about the 2020 primary as it's shaping up now and what's been going on with Bernie Sanders? Your husband, Jared, obviously wrote the book, What Happened to Bernie Sanders. People can still get it from Amazon and elsewhere. What do you think about Bernie Sanders in 2020?
He's dead to me.
Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, the lawsuit against the DNC was not filed on behalf of Bernie Sanders. It was filed on behalf of people who donated to him and Democrats, people who donated to the DNC. As you know, as a voter, I voted for Bernie Sanders in the Florida primary, but
This
I don't
year.
consider him. No, in 2016. I'm not voting this year. I'm sorry if some people think that makes me unpatriotic. You can go kick rocks. I don't engage in exercises in futility. So once I realized that the elections in this country are rigged, why would you go vote? They're rigged.
Fair enough. But I mean,
But you know, I don't judge people that go vote. You do with your free time as you see fit.
any thoughts on the Buttigieg app and what was going on with the caucus there in Iowa?
I haven't really followed, the Democratic primary. I didn't even watch the debates. But somebody told me that Buttigieg's first name is Peter Paul. So if he gets elected president, we would have President PP Butt.
Oh, Elizabeth,
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it?
that is fantastic. Well, I do want to remind people, if they're in the South Florida area and looking for trial attorneys, I hope they'll go visit
Don't
Beck.
drop by unannounced.
Don't drop by unannounced. You can visit beckandlee.com and you can learn all about Elizabeth Beck and Jared Beck there at their law firm. Elizabeth, anything you want to say before we wrap it up for tonight?
No, thank you for such a wide-ranging discussion. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you, either formally on the show or informally.
Likewise.
So it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you. I think it was helpful for people to understand some of the nuances. I think a lot of people watch the news, they watch TV, they hear Harvey Weinstein's on trial for rape, they think he's a scumbag. Boom, he's guilty of rape. But you really helped us understand some of the nuances of first degree, third degree, all of that kind of stuff. And we start to maybe get a better picture of how difficult it can be for these things to turn out really one way or the other. And there's a lot of things. People are excited about the pee-pee butt comment, so that's good. You're always a crowd pleaser, Elizabeth, so that's a wonderful thing.
It's wonderful to have a fifth grade sense of humor sometimes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, listen, say hi to everybody over there, and we will see you soon, and hopefully we'll have you and Jared back on the show very soon. Everyone should stay tuned tonight at 8 p.m. We're going to have Jimmy and Joanne Moriarty, another episode of Unseen Libya. I'll see everybody then. Thanks for watching.